Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. So, believe it or not, I didn't become a photographer to stand up here and preach to you guys. I became a photographer to start a dialogue between the people I photograph and the audience, which is you. And I see myself as a bridge. So, in this spirit, I like to have a dialogue this afternoon, this evening. So I like you to, whenever you have a question or a comment or a complaint or whatever you have, just raise your voice and say it out loud, okay? Okay? Well, thank you. Good. So my name is Nissen. I'm a photographer from Denmark, and I took this. This is a picture of me when I was just a small kid, and I show this picture to you because I think it's to understand my work. I think it's nice to know a little bit about me and why I started with photography in the first place. So I was this small kid, and I grew up in a very boring countryside of Denmark, next to the sea, and it was a very creative family with a lot of musicians, and they tried to teach me music as a way to express yourself through creativity, through music, but it never worked with me. They tried guitar, but I had too much energy, so they tried with drums. Didn't work out. But I carried that creativity in me. So when I became an early teenager, I was starting to get more and more involved in like grassroots activism against racism and such things. And I became more and more concerned about what I believe was injustice in the world and extreme poverty. Then, as soon as I could, I left that boring little village and I traveled to South America, to Venezuela, to study Spanish and South American culture. And at that time, I didn't have any clue of what I was going to do with my professional life. I didn't have any pressure, and I didn't have any clue. I was just exploring my interests. So in Venezuela, in the middle of the streets, I just realized that with this camera I bought, like an old Nikon camera, with this camera, I could really combine those three interests: the creativity, the political awareness, or social awareness, and this curiosity of exploring not just the world but other people. This curiosity that told me that the world was bigger than my village. So these three things really combined into photography, and since then that's pretty much what I've been doing. So I studied at the Danish School of Journalism, and right after I moved to China, to Shanghai, where I was based for 2 years doing freelance work. I thought that China was the most interesting place on the planet at that time, and that for understanding the world, I need to have a big understanding of China. Then I moved back, and now I'm working with I have a contract with the biggest Danish newspaper called Politiken. So the work I'm going to show you today, this afternoon, is work with some of my personal projects. It's all stories that I wanted to do, not because someone asked me to it, but because I had to do it. And I'm trying to find the story that moves me. And I have this idea that if I'm not moved when I take the pictures, none of the people who are going to look at the pictures are going to be moved either. So the first story I want to show you, I want to show you 3 stories today. And we don't have much time, so it's going to be a little bit quick. The first story is about a Danish lady who traveled to Nepal to save a child. So it all started out differently. I was in Nepal doing a story on maternity health. It's like Austria, Denmark gives a lot of money to third world countries to make a difference, taxpayers' money. So I was looking at what do we get for our money. How many lives do we save? So I was doing the story on maternity health, and this is the story as we ran it. As you might see, there's one tiny little picture to the left in the bottom. which is this picture. As you see, it wasn't very big in the paper. This picture I took when I was giving a tour in a public hospital in Kathmandu, and I'm just been giving a tour by the director, and honestly, it was pretty boring, and he was just trying to show how great his hospital was, and so we come into this room, and he says, "Oh, by the way, we have this little child, and we don't know what to do with it." So it turns out that the little child at that time didn't have a name. It was a little girl, and her mother left her right after birth. And the child had like an illness. It means that the water can go into the head, but it cannot come out. And usually here in Europe, you would be able to operate very quickly, and there would be no problems, because mentally it's perfectly fine. So basically the head is just growing and growing and growing and growing, and eventually it will suffocate and die. And the hospital didn't know what to do with it. They don't have a lot of resources, so they just placed it there. I was super shocked. How can you treat a person like that, a human being? And then I went to the chair and I had a look at the baby, and she was smiling back at me. It really touches me, because this was not just a monster on a chair. It was a real sweet little girl with a beautiful smile. So I took this picture and we printed it. And now I'm going to show you the story of one of the readers of that newspaper who saw the image and decided to do something. So she traveled, she asked her for information, me and the writer, and eventually went to Nepal to try to save the child. So it's a short movie, and here it is.
Ja, nej, du skal ikke være ked af det, skal der? Nej, ikke bange, ikke bange. Ja, jeg er her hos dig. Jeg er her hos dig.
En søndag i september så Cecilie Mose Hansen dette fotografi i Berlingske Tidende. Det var ikke særlig stort, og egentlig handlede reportagen om noget helt andet. Billedet er taget ind gennem en dør på et nedslidt hospital i Nepals hovedstad Kathmandu. Den lille pige i billedet er 1,5 år gammel. Hun er født med vand i hovedet. En dødelig tilstand, som nemt kan behandles i Danmark, men som hospitalet i Nepal intet har kunnet gøre ved. Så der ligger hun, forladt af sin mor, lagt til side for at dø.
Det jeg tænkte, det var bare, at det kan bare ikke være rigtigt, at der ikke er nogen, der kan gøre noget. Og så tror jeg egentlig bare, at der formede sig en lille tanke i mit hoved om, at hvad nu, hvis det var os, der gjorde noget.
Cecilie Mose Hansen er 36 år og har et job i toppen af Mærsk. I november pakker hun sin kuffert og rejser fra sin mand og sin 1-årige søn i Gentofte. I over en måned har hun researchet på pigens sag. Nu flyver hun de 6.000 kilometer væk fra Danmark, ud for at hjælpe den lille pige i Nepal.
Og så var det egentlig først bagefter, jeg sådan tænkte, wow, hvor er det vildt altså. Man sidder og læser en avis det ene øjeblik, og det næste øjeblik står man faktisk i Kathmandu ansigt til ansigt med hende.
Så er vi der. Ja, så er vi der. Ja, så er vi fremme.
Cecilie og den lille pige uden navn er ankommet til privathospitalet Annapurna i Kathmandu. Her arbejder en kirurg, som har sagt ja til at behandle barnet. De næste uger kommer til at bestå af en lang række undersøgelser og operationer, der vil afgøre den lille piges skæbne. Det hele kommer til at koste over $6.000. Penge, som Cecilie selv betaler.
Jeg tror, det jeg blev ked af, det var, der var sådan en beskrivelse af, hvordan hun lå og kunne ikke røre sig. Og når man ædede hende på brystet eller på kinden, så smilede hun. Og jeg synes, det var virkelig tryggende at tænke på, hvordan hun måske havde et følelsesliv og lå sådan fuldstændig og havde gjort det hele sit liv, 1,5 år gammel. Ikke? Når man selv har børn, og jeg har en dreng, ikke? Så synes jeg, at det var rigtig, rigtig hårdt at tænke på. Det fængsel, hun var i.
Der er gået 6 uger siden Cecilie så den lille pige i avisen. Indtil nu er der ingen, der har besværet sig med at give hende et rigtigt navn. Alle regnede med, at hun ville dø. Cecilie beslutter sig for, at pigen skal hedde Victoria.
Der ligger noget lidt symbolsk i det, kan man sige. Det betyder jo sejr, eller jeg sejrer. Og det håber vi, hun kommer til.
Efter en nat på privathospitalet begynder de første undersøgelser. Victoria er født med rygmarvsbrok. Brokken betyder, at den væske, der omgiver og beskytter hjernen, ikke kan løbe væk fra hovedet. Victoria er endnu så lille, at hendes kranie ikke er vokset sammen. For at kompensere for den ophobede mængde væske, har hendes hoved udvidet sig så meget, at kraniet ikke længere kan nå sammen. Toppen af hendes hoved er kun dækket af hud. Lægen står i et stort dilemma. Uden operationer vil Victorias evne til at synke eller trække vejret til sidst sætte ud. Hun vil med sikkerhed dø. Men også operationen er farlig.
Hvis vi virkelig skulle komme i en situation, hvor det faktisk ikke lykkes at behandle hende, og det får en fatal udgang, så mener jeg stadigvæk, at det var værd at forsøge. Og det er lidt farligt at sige, for på en måde gør jeg mig til herre over hendes skæbne. Der er ingen, der har spurgt hende. Men at ligge på en stol i et baglokale på et hospital, uden at nogen prøver noget, det synes jeg er værre. Du klarer det så flot, skatter. Du klarer det så flot, skatter.
Det er en uge siden, at Cecilie kom til Nepal, og Victoria skal igennem den første af mindst 3 store operationer. Først skal vandet tømmes ud af hendes hoved. Derefter skal kraniet brækkes op og sættes sammen igen. Det vil nu vise sig, om Victoria kan klare sig igennem det første skridt af et voldsomt behandlingsforløb.
Ja. Og du løfter armen. Ja, du løfter armen, du gør. Ja, du løfter armen.
Det var lidt fantastisk at se, at det er gået godt, ikke? Og hun ligger der og kigger, som hun plejer, og jeg synes, at hun har endnu mere overskud til sådan at ligge og knirke og sådan småsnakke og sådan. Og man kan kigge på det der hulrum der øverst i hendes hoved, ikke? Og det er jo helt vildt, fordi man kan allerede se, hvor meget væske der bare er blevet drænet fra hendes hoved. Og man tænker bare på, hvor spændt det må have været, ikke? Og hvilken lettelse det må være. Det er jo helt vildt, altså. Det er simpelthen overvældende, ikke? Hun er en brav lille pige. Det er hun altså. Jeg glæder mig til at stå op i morgen og se, hvordan hun har det. Jeg håber, hun får en god nats søvn oven på alt det her. Det tegner rigtig godt lige nu. Det gør det. Det tegner rigtig godt.
Der er gået 2 dage siden operationen. Ved siden af Victorias seng står 3 flasker med 1,5 liter væske. Væsken er løbet ud af Victorias hoved. Der, hvor hendes kranie ikke er vokset sammen, er hovedbunden sunket ned som planlagt, og kirurgen planlægger en ny operation snart. Sygepasseren Maja kredser om Victoria. Hun skal passe hende døgnet rundt, når Cecilie om få timer flyver til Danmark. Men stemningen er elendig. Om lidt tager Cecilie hjem, og hun er bange.
Det, der er sket her i dag, det er, at Victoria hun har fået det lidt dårligere. Hun har sådan smågrædt hele eftermiddagen, og det er som om, der er sådan nogle spjæt, og så græder hun. Så det er rigtig ufedt, for jeg skal hjem i aften om 2 timer. Nu gik det lige så godt, tænker man, ikke? Men jeg kan ikke gøre andet. Jeg må rejse tilbage, og så må jeg følge det og håbe på det bedste. Lille pus.
En uge efter, at Cecilie er kommet hjem, modtager hun en sms fra doktoren i Nepal. Kære Cecilie, Vær sød at være tapper. Du forsøgte. Vi forsøgte alle. Det var hendes skæbne. Vær sød at finde ro.
Jeg var simpelthen så ked af det, og det har været lige siden. Altså, jeg sov ikke resten af natten, og jeg lå bare og græd. Og tænkte bare det hele igennem, altså, og følte mig magtesløst, og synes det hele var omsonst, og så alligevel ikke jo. Fordi vi har jo stadigvæk gjort noget, og forhåbentlig noget, som hun også kunne mærke. Mit håb er stadigvæk, at hun i den sidste periode af sit liv måske følte mere nærhed og varme og opmærksomhed, end hun har følt nogensinde i hele sit liv. Og at hun jo døde med folk omkring sig, frem for liggende alene på en stol i et mørkt rum, hvilket sandsynligvis var blevet alternativet, hvis vi aldrig havde gjort noget. Man kan virkelig gøre meget med en lille indsats i virkeligheden, hvis man sætter sig det for, og man har viljen. Og det er det, der driver det. Så det er de ting, jeg tænker nu. Men jeg skal have det mere på afstand, før jeg kan tænke længere frem og se sådan det positive i det.
Well, it's a big question. I don't know what I think about that personally either. What we did when we published the story is that we made a website where you could find all the different chapters of the story. And on that website, you could debate how you felt about that, how you felt about Cecilia's choice, how you felt about this feeling I think all of us have sometimes when we see images like that we need to do something, but what to do, how to do the right thing. So basically there was two groups here, and they were not equally big, like there was one group was bigger than the other. Basically it said she was beautiful. This one says, "You're a beautiful soul. What you did is an inspiration for this." Other people said it wasn't the right thing. It was not you to decide, and you should have spent all that money elsewhere. So I didn't take that picture. I have to say it's a private picture. But it's Cecilia and her boy. She has 2 sons now, in front of a container packed with medical equipment that she got from Danish donors, and she managed to collect 30,000 euros, which she donated to hospitals in Nepal. So at least something positive came out of it. Later, this story was published in many countries, but it was also published, and that made me very, very happy. It was published in the Kathmandu Post in Nepal. And I was so happy about it because the reaction I got from Nepal was very, very positive. And I remember a photographer who said to me, you know, we want to do these stories by ourselves. And you as a foreigner, it's great that you're coming and doing this story, but really it inspires us to do these kind of hard stories ourselves. Why does it take a foreigner to notice that a child, abandoned child, just laying there, should be taken care of? So that's the first story I've shown you now, and the next one is I'm being a little bit hard on you because this one is also tough. So it's about homophobia in Russia. Few people know it, but actually during the Bolshevik Revolution, it was allowed to be open gay in Russia. There was Russians in the Soviet, the Bolshevik leadership that were open gay people. Later on with Stalin, it was closed down. And so it's been going like this throughout the century for LGBTs, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in Russia. Then with the fall of the wall, everything became much more free and open, and everyone, all the LGBTs were very, very happy about it. But the recent years, it's gone from bad to worse. So I was in Russia anyway to do a workshop actually for young photographers. And I decided to look into the issue of homophobia in Russia. It's something I read about in the news, that they were about to make this new law that prohibits propaganda for non-traditional sexual relationships to minors. That's a long word. It means that you cannot tell children that it's okay to be gay, because that's propaganda, and all the Russian children will become gay. So they say. So I took this picture on the first day. It was some activists who applied for marriage. Of course, they were denied. But that was their action. The next day, or maybe 2 days after, I took this picture. The other one was Dmitry kissing his boyfriend. So this is Kiri. He's a young guy. He's at a gay pride in St. Petersburg. And I was standing at this gay pride. This is not that situation. Well, I was standing at this gay pride and was standing next to a young gay man that I just met the day before. Pavel was his name. Very quiet young man. And suddenly a homophobe comes up to him and just screams him in the head, "Ah, you faggot!" And Pavel answered super calmly, yes, and proud. He answered, "Yes, I am homosexual." So the homophobe, the young, he was like a hooligan. He just punches Pavel straight in the face, just like that. And I was standing next by, and I was a bad photographer. I didn't take a nice picture, but I was so shocked, and I felt powerless. I felt like screaming. I felt like crying. I felt like getting into the fight. This was so wrong and upsetting, and it's going to happen today. So I decided that by witnessing that moment came a responsibility, that from that moment the story changed from something I read about in the news to something personal for me. And I decided to look much deeper into the issue of homophobia in Russia. These are some of the young homophobes. Some of them are ultra-nationalist, some ultra-conservative, some very religious, some not religious at all, just there for the fun. So here we are inside a bus, we're driving away from another gay pride, and these guys are coming up to the bus and throwing stones and rocks at us. This is what it shows, and I like that, but I'm also looking for pictures when I'm looking at my images, like all my pictures. So trying to select pictures that has like a small gift or small reward for the audience who were more aware. I like that my picture, you can look at them for a glimpse of a second, and you get a story. But if you take the time to look deeper into them, there should be a reward for you. So this is a question for you. This shadow here, and I know that not everyone will notice, but for those who have the right eye. So this shadow, does it remind you of anything? Thank you. Well, yeah, the British street artist Banksy. And I'm sure that a lot of people won't see it, but for me, I like those small things. And so this is Dmitry. He's 27 years old. Him and John and Alex in the winning image, they go to the same club, to the same place to have meetings for LGBTs. Suddenly, one day in December 2013, a group of young guys with hoods on, they come into the club, the meeting place, and they start beating everyone up with baseball bats, very badly. But one of them had an air gun, like not a real gun, but an air gun, and he shoots it at Dmitry just at this close range, just like that. And Dmitry loses his eye, and he will never see again. 27 years old student, and of course they never found the people who did it. So some people ask me if John and Alex are facing danger because of this picture. I'm just saying, well, the danger was already there. This is Milonov. He's one, I know it's a little bit of a boring picture. It's not visually, as a visual person, it's not my favorite picture, but I put it in anyway because it's a very important story behind it. Milonov, I call him the grandfather of homophobia in Russia. He's a member of Putin's party, and he was one of the architects by this new anti-gay law. He also very connected with the Russian Orthodox Church. This is Maxim Mashinkevich, this guy. Him and his group, I met this group, him and his group, a bunch of young people, and they like to do steroids and do homophobic videos. So what they will do is that they place a fake advertisement, dating advertisement online. So when the gay person shows up thinking that he's going to have a romance, Maxim Mashinkevich and his group of people will show up instead. They'll catch the person, drag him to a hotel room somewhere, and they will torture him for hours. Sometimes they'll make the people drink their own urine. Sometimes they just beat them severely. And there's another video by another group, because there's many groups like that in Russia. There's another group where the gay person is being forced to rape himself with a bottle. So I saw these videos at home, and him and his group, according to themselves, made 70 videos like this. And what shocked me equally was that he didn't even bother to cover his face. He felt so self-secure that he didn't even bother. This is another part of this video. And some people ask me, like, how can you show this picture? Some photographers saying, how can you show it? It's not even your picture. So I see myself, first of all, as a storyteller. And when I saw those videos at home, I was so touched, and I felt that everyone else needed to see them. So how can I show it? Can I end up re-traumatized this young boy, which I don't know who is, I don't have his name? Do I run the errand of Maxim Mashinkevich and his groups? And I compared a little bit to why we photograph a terrorist attack. Today is a very special day, and I'm sure you all remember the pictures from this day that we saw some time ago. But I think we do need to take those pictures, but what we have to do with the power we have is to put it into another context, sort of say, to use the images against the people who are doing this. And I think by looking at his face, the way they shaved him and painted his face, and the way he's looking at us, the way he's crying, being forced to dance around naked. That was a big risk. It is. Well, you don't really know. My idea was to do more work on these groups, but after winning this prize, I cannot do that any longer. But when I met with them, I used my middle name, which is Nikolai. It's good in Russia, right? And I said I wanted to do something about their work. But when I met with them, one of the first things they did was show me a loaded gun. And I've been to a lot of interviews, and it's pretty rare that people start with showing you a loaded gun. Why do they do that? I think it was a way for them to say, don't try to do anything. So, but being a photographer is not, it's, in the end, it's all about empathy, trying to put yourself in the mind of someone else, even though you don't like what they're doing. So honestly, when I met these people, I was trying to do the same thing, trying to understand why they're doing what they're doing, how they become, where all this hatred comes from. So this is Irina and Lada, a young lesbian couple living in St. Petersburg, have 3 wonderful children with the same donor father. And I like this picture because it reminds me of like everyday life. And it's like when they're done feeding the children, they can do the laundry. But I also took this picture because in Russia, there's very powerful people who think it's better to grow up in a Russian children's home than with a lesbian family. They want to make a law that makes it possible to remove children from lesbian families like Irina and Lara and place them in children's homes. This is a young activist who's standing in court defending herself against this anti-gay law. The cage reminds me of the images of Pussy Riot. This is John and Alex in a portrait. So when I was doing all this work, in the beginning, I wanted to document all these aspects of the hatred, of the oppression, but at one point I really felt there was something missing in my work. Because we look at all these terrible images, and I'm sure we all know it's terrible, but what to do with it and how to connect with it, that's the challenge. I just keep asking myself, how can we connect with all this? Because for me, I was covering Ebola. I've been on that graveyard. I covered Maidan. I've been in that place, exact place. So I know that it's real. This situation is not more abstract for me than you guys sitting here and looking at these faces. You know, it's so real for me, and I want to pass on that experience and that connection. So I realized that I needed to take a picture that connects us, because in the end, this story about homophobia, it's not about politics. It's not about East versus West, because this is an issue that the whole world is talking about. And it's not about religion either. So in the end, to me, it's just about love. So I was introduced by John and Alex by a common friend. And I just hang out with them for a whole evening, and we had a lot of beers, honestly. And we just talked about our lives. And at one point, they were going home, and I asked them if I could join them. Because I wanted to take a picture of love and desire, regardless of anything else. Just pure love and desire. Lust. So this is the picture I took. And I try to do a lot of research before I do my stories. I read the latest reports of Human Rights Watch, and afterwards I spend hours and hours of looking at my work, which picture to select from all those pictures I took that night. But in the situation, I really try to switch off my brain and just go with my instincts. And I think if you think too much when you're taking pictures, I compare it with dancing. If you think too much, it doesn't work. Just go with the rhythm and trust your instinct. And I select, among all the other images that night, I selected this one because this lust and this passion and attraction. But to me, there's also a danger. And for me, this shadow is very important. And the way he opens his lips, and the lips, this one is a little bit wet, and all these small details, to me, they matter very much. So this picture is a symbol. Well, in the caption it says it's a Memorial Day for victims of HIV/AIDS. But that you can write in an article. Who cares anyway about a day like that, you know? But to me, it's a symbol. It's a symbol of a family, of a united family. Because imagine that you're young gay in Russia. Apparently 80% of the population are anti-gay. So imagine you're a young guy, 14 years old, and you tell your father how you see yourself. Well, it's very likely that he will kick you out. So what do? You go to the bigger cities like Moscow or St. Petersburg, and you meet with other young people who are just in the same position, and you become each other's family. So this is what this picture is about for me. This is Ruslan. He's 27 years old. He just got out of a heterosexual relationship. He was married to a woman. And for the first time in 27 years, he can just do whatever he wants. So some gay people say to me, Mads, you shouldn't show this picture. It's the cliche of gays. I'm saying, like, who are you to judge Ruslan? 27 years? You know, it's a long time being in the closet. No wonder he's gonna have a little bit of steam. And who am I to judge his sexuality anyway? I think you need more confidence in yourself than being busy with other people's lives like that. And all these pictures, I have to say, is reportage. I'll get back to you in a bit. So all these pictures are reportage. I don't stage situations like, can you do this, or can you smoke a little bit, or turn on the beautiful looking light, or walk through that alley without clothes, or I don't pay people. I think it's really important for me that you can trust these images, that they're journalism. Yes?
I'm interested in why do people decide, because he knew that you will take a picture, and why especially Jon and Alex said, okay, you can be like a viewer of our intimate moments.
Yeah.
You know, there must be some motivation behind this.
Yes. So the motivation why people let us in as photographers. For some people, the motivation, which is part of it, for Jon and Alex, they like the story. It's my experience that most people like the stories to come out. It's my experience that most people want to be heard, to be understood. But I also think, honestly, it's something to do with chemistry, that you might say all the right things and there might be all these right reasons, but if you don't trust someone, you're not gonna let them in. So I think it's a combination. But first of all, like, when I worked in China, I would photograph people without education, peasants who didn't know much about, honestly, who didn't know much about politics. So when I asked them if I could photograph them for a story about human rights, I had to be much more careful because I didn't have the feeling they knew what they were going into. Jon and Alex is different. They belong to a new generation of Russian activists who are just tired of bowing their head, just tired of, you know, being an excuse for themselves, and they're willing to, like, this is who I am, I'm proud of it, and if you have a problem with me, well, so does that answer your question? This picture I took in this spring, yeah, in Copenhagen, my hometown. It's a lesbian couple that I know who are getting married in Denmark, because in Denmark you're allowed to get married when you're lesbians. And I kind of like it because it's so timeless and beautiful without intimate. And I mean, it was fun to be a wedding photographer again. So this one is the last picture of the story. And I took, and it just tells, it's a gay pride, and all the activists just let go of these rainbow-colored balloons, and in the foreground here you have the back of a special police force. In Russia you pronounce it OMON, but I know it's, yeah, it's silly, isn't it? It took me a time before, I spent a lot of time with these policemen without me noticing that if you flip it, I'm sure they love it. Okay, thank you. That was the last picture from that story. Any questions? Yes. Hi. Hi.
How did Jon and Alex react after they heard that the picture got recorded and got shown in the whole world?
Yeah, so Alex, how did Jon and Alex react when they saw the picture? The World Press Photo people, that's her, they called me the day before the announcement to tell me. And of course I was super happy, and personally, but first of all, because of the story. And one of the first things I did was try to reach out to John and Alex to share the happy news with them, but also to give them a warning. And the message I said to the LGBTs and everyone in these pictures is that we shouldn't be surprised. We're criticizing some very powerful people. We shouldn't be surprised if they want to come back at us at one point. And I also gave them the opportunity to pull back, to pull out. I'm happy they didn't, because now a lot of people are talking about their issue, the LGBT issue. But they're happy about it, and Alex put it on his Facebook wall. And in 2 weeks' time, I will be meeting them for the first time in person in St. Petersburg. So that's going to be fun. But so far, there's not been any violent reactions. In Russia, this picture doesn't really exist that much. I compare it a bit to when the Chinese win the Nobel Prize. That doesn't create a lot of debate in China, because no one knows. So whenever they talk about the World Press Photo Exhibition, they find another picture to show. Any more questions? Please, because the next story is very difficult to talk about. Okay, so I told you earlier, or we can do something. Yeah, please.
So, what is your impression about the Russian people, except for their 80%, as you say, per study, homophobic view? Do you now have a difficult relation regarding Russian people, or do you?
So Milonov, this person I said was the grandfather of homophobia, he commented on the picture, he said it's anti-Russia, but it's totally not. If I didn't like Russians, I would never have done this story. And I don't judge 80% of the Russian population for having an opinion I disagree with. I don't. I rather start a dialogue. And I think that what photography can do is not just saying this is black and this is white. I'm much more into all these muddy discussions, because there's a reason for everything. I really, Russia is a huge country, and I've been to many places, and I really like it. The more I spend time there, I really like it. So it's absolutely not anti-Russia. Absolutely not. And it's an issue that's going on everywhere. In my home country, this has been debated. In the United States, it's been debated. In Uganda, in Dubai. This is a very controversial picture that you cannot show in many places in the world. Why? It's just two people loving. Some of these pictures are very brutal pictures of children being ripped apart in terrorist attacks you're allowed to show. How can you not show a picture like that? That I don't understand. So, yeah. So Amazonas, when I was living in Venezuela, as I told you in the beginning, I ended up spending quite a few months in a small city called Puerto Ayacucho. I'll show you a map. Wait, well, this is me when I'm a young guy with walking in the rainforest for many, many days. So this is South America, and this is Amazonas. And Puerto Ayacucho is in Venezuela, up in the north. So Puerto Ayacucho was this very strange place, and this is why I find it a little bit more difficult to explain this story to you, because it's much more of a feeling that I have inside that I try to get out in my pictures. But it was a strange place because, first of all, it's one of the warmest, hottest places, most humid places on earth. Believe me, it's just everyone becomes lazy and horny. And it's not. And because there's so many mango trees, I don't know why they planted all those ridiculous mango trees, but there's mango trees everywhere, and no one is eating it. So there's just smell of rotten mangoes everywhere. And then it attracts all sort of I mean, I'm honest here, like weird people. There would be people coming from the townships, the slums of Venezuela. You would find gold miners, you would find prostitutes, you would find just fortune hunters, people who want to run away from something. You would have a lot of missionaries. I've never seen so many missionaries in my life as I see in Venezuela or in the Amazon. I even met some churches who were they came from Europe to be a missionary in South America. Then the mother church died, and they're the only one who representing that little religion. And that's from the outside. You have loggers trying to cut down the rainforest and so. And from the inside of the rainforest, you have the indigenous people. So in the Amazon, it's the biggest rainforest in the world. It's about the same size of Australia, and there's 26. It's covering 9 countries, and there's 26 million people living in the Amazon. But only 1 million is what we call indigenous people, the tribes, and they will come from the inside of the rainforest out to get sugar, to get salt, to look for a better life, whatever, to get drunk, to trade. So you would walk down the marketplace, you would find a fortune hunter, and a missionary, and a prostitute, and a woman who looks like she took a time machine 100 years. And I was just confused. And I really love that place, because I like when it's a bit more chaotic. I feel like I can be the person I like to be, because no one's going to judge me, because all these people, they're more weird than I am. So when I graduated from the journalism school, when I'm doing my last project, I decided to go back to the Amazon and try to capture that feeling in photography. So the project you're going to see now is about this, the contradictions between nature and culture, between man and nature, between old cultures and new cultures. So we're going to start in the cities, because that's how you enter the Amazon. Then we're going to go and meet some of the indigenous groups. In Venezuela, we have the, where do we start? Well, I'm going to make it a little bit short. So we're starting in the cities. We're going to meet the indigenous people. We're going to fly a bit. Then we're going to go to the biggest illegal gold mine in South America. And we end up in Bolivia, where we're going to walk with a big family of nomads. It's a huge family, and their ancestors used to walk in the forest. And now the forest is gone, so they're just walking on this edge. And it's the last story. It's about 5 minutes. There's no explanation, only a bit of music. And, well, sit back and enjoy the Amazon. That's it. Well, thank you. So I think we have if there's any questions or comments or whatever.
When is the time for you to decide for a project if you shoot black and white or color? And what was your reason to shoot Amazonas in black and white?
Well, it's a good question. Because it's not, I mean, black and white and color is like a very clear line, but sometimes the choice you make is even, it's just as big, like what is the style of this story and so on. Some photographers, they like one language, and whatever story they do, they use that language. Maybe the same with musicians. But I look at it differently because, as I said, first of all, I'm a storyteller. So I use whatever is in my toolbox to tell that story. And sometimes I like to use multimedia video, sometimes I like my iPhone, sometimes Hasselblad, like old film. Sometimes black and white and color, and it really what fits that story that's deciding. For the Amazonas work, it was more like my impression of that place, my attraction, and it was a little bit more selfish, you could say, a little bit less journalistic, less explanation, more impressions. And by doing black and white, it's something you can do to make it more abstract. And I always decide right in the beginning, always. Also with my portrait, when I'm shooting portraits in black and white, because it's a whole different way of shooting. If I'm shooting color, I have to look at colors, obviously, but you know, it's just different. And sometimes it's good because it gives a feeling, but sometimes it's bad. And the compositions just changes because this balance, like you in the blue and you in the red, it's kind of a balance. In black and white, it doesn't matter because it's a way to cut down. With the Amazonas project, I also made a decision for myself to make frames that were more simple, some more simplicity in the photograph to make a more complex message. So kind of cutting deeper and like cutting into the bone. Sometimes black and white does that. A little bit more expression, a little more rough, more abstract. So. Absolutely. Yeah, I already like it's the same with my lenses. Should I use, like, if I want to do a picture of you, should I use a 50mm? It's like here, but I know if I want to make like this view picture, I might be standing right in the middle, and even one step back and do 28 or something. It's the same decision. It's very intuitive. Again, if I think too much about it, it's forced and there's no melody in it. So, but mostly I shoot color. Yeah. Yep. Yes. if there will be a change in my work, yes. The biggest reason is that I don't work so much any longer. So, with this prize, as I said, I had plans for the year to do something more in depth on the homophobes, the new generation of Russian nationalists that I cannot do any longer, and other plans I had to do. But instead, I'm being here with you, and I think that's very rewarding as well. So this is the first big change. I think in many ways, I guess it's a little bit, I know for John and Alex and the activists and the gay community, not just in Russia, it made a huge change. But for me personally, I think maybe it's too early to say. Because it can be good and bad. There can be a lot of pressure and expectations, and I don't like that. It's not good for my creativity. Whenever there's so much noise, I always go one step back and into myself and try to feel more what I want to do, instead of everyone else wanting you to do something. It needs to be personal for me. Yep. Yes?
Yeah, you said you are a storyteller, so when do you know when a story is over?
The Amazonas project. I have to do a little advertisement because I have some books with me and you can buy them afterwards, but there's only a few books. So that project took me 7 years to do. And it was difficult. And the homophobia in Russia, when I finished Amazonas, after 7 years, I mean not non-stop, but 7 years working on it, I was exhausted. If any of you are photographers, you know that feeling. Just no energy at all. I just tired, basically didn't want to take much pictures. But when I saw that incident with Pavel, I got all the energy back. I was like, this is something I need to do. So I think that's the difference when it's more personal. And it's difficult. I mean, I'm just keeping my eye. But I used to do work on a story for years and years, with this one, or for weeks and weeks, and then publish it. I have a different idea now. I'm doing more I'm posting everything all the time. Well, so I might do an Instagram picture while in the field, and then do a feature. Like this homophobia was published after first trip, after second trip, after third trip, like so on. So I think that's a new way of working for me.
What do you think are the reasons for that increase of homophobia in Russia in the last years?
I don't know. It's a big question. And first of all, I see myself more as an investigator trying to describe what is happening, and not as an activist or politicians, like this is the reason, these are when I ask the gay community, they say there might be a lot of reasons. One reason is that some political powers want to find an enemy within to make more unity, create a new national identity in Russia. Some say it's because the people in the regime, the Putin party, want to make stronger connection with the Russian Orthodox Church, which is rising. They want giving them something to get support. It's difficult to say, but I like to think it's why do we see in Uganda we see the same tendencies among a lot of Christian groups, like some Christian groups at least, some Muslim groups as well. We see the same battle. That's why it's so exciting, it's so interesting to look at it these years. But it's not and there's no one, the one who say there's only this reason, I think they're making it too simple.
We had this discussion about manipulation of World Press photo images.
Yes.
So maybe just concerning exposure correction or lighting up parts of an image where, until where do you consider an image as authentic?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's a very important question, and sometimes I wonder why it's so difficult for some photographers. Apparently it is, because there were so many people who were taken out. It's like, to me it's so simple. As a journalist, you shouldn't lie. And the newspaper where I'm working, if I put two pictures together in Photoshop like that, they will fire me the next day. I think they should fire me the next day, because in this situation where there's so many photographers, the trust we have, the trust you should be able to put, it's the dearest thing we have, because if you cannot trust us, this could just be fiction. And believe me, some of the pictures would be better if we could do all that. So I think what I do, take my picture, use my lenses, but all pictures are not objective. They're subjective. It's my choice. I stand where I stand. I use the camera, the lens, whatever. The way I am makes people change, even though I don't want it. So it's subjective, and I'm aware of that, but still, I try not to intervene. And I take the picture, and in Photoshop, I crop it sometimes if I think it's needed. I can take away, but not add, and I give more contrast. Maybe I'll adjust the colors a bit. Maybe I will lighten up the faces a bit, so directing the eye a little bit more. I compare that to a journalist or let's say a radio journalist who's been recording this talk for an hour, and he's going to boil it into 1 minute. So does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you. But I don't think it's something with the new technology. I think that's a very wrong perspective some photographers have. Like, they blame it on Photoshop. I'll tell you one thing. I went through the archives of my newspaper. It's a newspaper with a strong reputation. Went through the archive. In the archive, historical archive, they were faking big times. Because they were so old cameras, when they're capturing football, soccer, they had a box with footballs, and they would find the one that fits. Like, well, it could be a headshot. Well, put it here. It's the big ball, not the small ball. You know, like that. There's one with the prince who's shooting ducks. Apparently, he wasn't very good at it, but luckily, you had two pictures, you put them together, and he's suddenly. And that was more common. So I think it's a matter of ethics, not technique, in the end. Yes? Anyone else? Well, sure.
You described this situation at the gay pride in Russia, where this young gay man got hit, and you were really, and you've told us that you were an activist when you were young.
Yes.
So I just ask myself, isn't it the hardest thing in such situations, especially, to just be the storyteller and to not intervene? Mm. And how did you get from activist to storyteller? What was the change in your mindset or
Very good question.
Perspective?
So I stopped being an activist before I became a photographer. And I don't think being an activist suited me very well, because in my nature, I always like to be the devil's advocate. I like to question things. I find, I lived in China. You have the yin-yang. Things need to be in balance. There's black and white. But actually what people don't know is there's something in between. This area that no matter how black or white it is, there's the gray area. And maybe that's, and some people say that the world needs to be in balance, but the gray area, that's where we live our lives. So I like the gray area, and I think whenever someone say, I have the truth, I'll know that that's the thing most far from the truth. So it just didn't, to me it just fits me much better. And I know I'm not an activist, because if the gay people if they were catching homophobes and would torture them for hours, I think it would be a great story. It would be terrible, but I needed to photograph it equally. So that way, you You can count on me. I'm a one-man army, and I point my camera wherever I think it's needed. Yes, maybe that was the last one. Okay.
Ja, dann vielen Dank für Ihr Interesse, für Ihr Kommen. Sie haben jetzt noch die Möglichkeit, mit Mess, auch mit Anaïs zu sprechen, sich die Ausstellung anzuschauen und ja, noch eine Herzensangelegenheit. Wir möchten Sie auch einladen, für die Flüchtlingshilfe zu spenden, haben eine entsprechende Box vorne aufgestellt und ja, thank you again for this amazing lecture. Thank you, Mets.
Thank you so much.